Hello, hello, fearless listeners. Are you ready for another episode of Let Fear Bounce? It's the podcast that's all about conquering challenges and facing our fears. I'm your host, Kim Langling, and each week we'll dive into inspiring stories, expert insights, and practical tips to help you turn your fear into your greatest ally. So sit back, relax, grab that cup of coffee, and let's discover how to make fear our bouncing board towards a life filled with endless possibilities right here on Let Fear Bounce. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Let Fear Bounce. This is your host, Kim Langling, and I am so pleased that you are joining me today along with my beautiful guest, J.R. Johnson. She writes science fiction and fantasy about future histories, imaginary geographies, and speculative societies. Say that fast 3 times, folks. Speculative societies. She grew up in the folded Appalachian. Okay, this is what I've always wanted to know. Appalachian or Appalachian?
Could be either. It's
Really?
one of those things. It's like tomato, tomato.
I'm going to go with Appalachian. She grew up in those hills, folks, where she learned to love fall, blueberries straight from the bush, and the stream beneath the willows near her house. And the fact that fall is inevitably followed by winter, that picking berries meant crossing paths with bears, and the stream was laced with dioxins may also have impacted her outlook. She holds a PhD in urban studies and planning, an MS in geography, and a BA in history. Her work has appeared in Writers of the Future, Triangulation, Energy, Nature, Futures, and other publications. And for more, you can visit her latest projects at jrjohnson.me, and that will be in the show notes, folks. She is also one of the winners in an international writers contest, and we are going to have her chit chat about that for a bit. But JR, wow, thank you so much for being my guest on Let Fear Bounce today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Kim. I appreciate it.
All kinds of stuff to talk about. But first, I want to talk about this contest that you participated in, and you are one of the winners. And that's a big deal. That's a pretty big deal, this contest. So share a little bit about that.
Sure. It is essentially the biggest amateur writing contest out there. If you want to put it that way, it is global. Anyone can apply from anywhere. I imagine if there were aliens, they could apply too. They'd be welcome.
Yes. What if? Let's speculate on that, shall we? What if?
But it's great. It is, again, it's international. So anybody who has not become a quote unquote professional writer. So if you have been, if you have published books or you have been paid over a certain amount, that sort of thing, then you're not eligible because essentially you don't need their help anymore, right? And their whole goal is to help amateur writers become professional writers. They're very much invested in science fiction and fantasy, and they have 12 winners a year. In terms of it's every quarter 3 winners, and then at the end of the year you get all 12 winners are flown from wherever they may be, whatever country or spaceship they're from, they're flown out to LA for a week-long workshop, and it is pretty astonishing. It was it was incredible. You got to meet all sorts of people, professional writers. You spent all day in workshop rooms with them and learned a lot. It was really something. It was exhausting, I won't lie, but it was really
how exciting. I mean, 12 out of, and you said it's an international thing. So it's a worldwide contest and only 12 people are chosen, and you were one of them.
Yes. And as
an amateur writer, that is awesome.
It was, yeah, I was really, I was like, wait, what? They call you, right? There's a phone call. And so the person who, deals with all of the contest winners calls you and is like, hey, this is Joni from da. And Joni is like, oh, you've won. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, right.
So yeah, and so it was very astonishing. And they don't actually release their submission numbers. But they do say that there are thousands every quarter. So
every quarter,
right?
Wow.
So it's a lot of people. And so there are many ways to succeed as a writer, but this one has the benefit of being very high profile. You are able to, like I said, connect with a lot of professional writers, and it's free, right? So in terms of submitting, you can submit as much as you want. Some people submit for years, like literally. Some people have submitted for decades, and it's fine because you just write whatever you want to write. You send it one in a quarter, and maybe you get picked, maybe you don't. There are gradations of awards, essentially, right? So you can have an honorable mention, you can have, different levels of honorable mentions, and then you can win, which is great, right? So the top 3 of each quarter win, quote unquote, and are then flown out. And there is actually a grand prize winner. That wasn't me this year, which was great because the grand prize winner had to make 2 speeches. I was fine with just the one, thank you. But yeah, it was quite the experience. And it was one of those things that I thought, boy, I just have no idea what this is going to be like, but I can't wait to get in there and just experience it. And it was really nice having the opportunity to connect with them in that way. And, you're a writer. You spend a lot of time alone in your office or wherever with your computer, and that's it. You don't see people typically. And so being able to go to this week-long event, learn a lot, but then also meet a lot of people, it was pretty terrific.
Yeah, what an amazing experience. Gosh, that I'm excited for you. I mean, what an amazing experience. And you said they didn't give you numbers, but it was, thousands per quarter. Even if it was just 100, you were in the top 12.
Yeah.
That is just, it's amazing for amateur writers. I didn't realize it was for amateur writers. How incredible. And what a nice stepping stone to your writing career.
Yes. One of the things that they do when you're out there, it's you do some writing, but mostly it's a professional workshop, right? So the goal really is not to just kind of help you be a writer. They're like, hey, you got here, you know how to write. Like, you've done that part. Now we need to help you get over the next hump, which is how to become a professional, if that's what you want, right? And so they talk about a lot of that side of the business, of what it's like to be a writer and how to navigate the various shoals and hiccups that you might run into. And so that part was fascinating too, right? Because again, you spend a lot of time alone in your room, and there's a lot you don't know or experience until you actually do make that leap. And so that was something new and something very helpful.
I bet it was, by golly. I know that for myself, I learned as I went, taught myself an awful lot. I'm very fortunate that my professional background, like when I worked outside the home full time, was sales and marketing. So that's come in incredibly helpful, because people don't realize that you're writing books and you spend a lot of time writing, but that's not even close to everything that's involved. You don't just write a book and send it off and someone's going to say, this is perfect, and publish it. There's marketing involved and all kinds of other, editing, proofreading, beta readers. If you do that, just the marketing alone is a full-time job.
Absolutely.
To market that one book, and if you have a publicist or not, or maybe you do, or do you have an agent, all kinds of research you have to do. And I don't think folks realize just, it can be quite exhausting. I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but it's exhausting some days. Like you said, we spend a lot of time on your own, and you do as an author. How much time do you spend writing? Actual writing?
That's a terrible question.
I know, and I've never asked an author that before, because I know mine's hit or miss, but I'm tossing it out at you anyway.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I can do this. No, it really does depend. Let's see. All right. I like the title of this podcast, Let Fear Bounce, right? We're just putting it all out there.
That's right.
Facing the realities of this. And the truth is that sometimes I don't write at all. Right? I mean, I would love to be one of those authors that is up every day and, 5 a.m, and I'm putting in 4 hours before my day job and all of that. Sometimes that happens, but not usually, I'll be honest, right? Um, what I can do is adjust to my circumstances depending on how I'm feeling, how I'm doing. And so I'll kind of cram it in when I can. If things are going great, I may be, I may have weeks where I'm like, yes, I'm getting up, I'm getting on my bicycle, I'm going to think about what I'm doing, and then I'm getting on the treadmill. I have a treadmill desk, and so I'm getting on the treadmill, and I'm going to spend an hour, and I'm going to write this thing I've been thinking about. Some days that absolutely works, which is great. Sometimes it really doesn't, right? And that's just got to be okay, right? Because if you can do it, terrific. If you can't, that's fine. Just get up the next day and take another stab at it. If you let it get you down, then it's over, right?
That's right. I am so glad that you mentioned that, putting that pressure on yourself. So, and I know there are, like you said, there are people that they are very regimented and they are very disciplined, and they get up and they're like, I will write from 5 until 7 a.m. every morning, or 7 to 9 p.m. every night, whatever the case may be for whatever circumstance. And I tried that. I
No.
can't do it that way. It's not comfortable for me. It's not, nothing comes naturally when I'm forcing myself into this block of time. So have you found that to be the same for you?
I have tried. Sometimes it works. I think it depends on what my problem is that week, right? Like if the problem is just I'm distracted and I've got things to do at work or whatever, sometimes it can be great because it's like, no, I'm carving out this time, this chunk of time where I don't have to worry about those other things. Then it can work for me just fine. But if it's really that I'm not sure what I want to write, or I'm not feeling confident about what I'm doing, then just kind of staring at it doesn't always help, right? Forcing myself to do it doesn't always help. And in what I've learned for myself is that in that case, I'm better off doing something creative, but something else. And that allows me to be creative. It allows me to distract myself from the larger project. And it allows me to play around in a way that loosens me up and keeps me feeling optimistic, which always helps, right? Because you're right, bang yourself over the head thinking, I really have to do this, I'm doing a terrible job. That's not helpful, at least for me. So if I can take that approach, it can influence the final product. Although, to be fair, like when you talk to professional writers, they really are like, you know what, you just have to do it. Like if it's a job, you treat it like a job. And the key is you have to figure out a way to make it work by the time you're done with it. It doesn't have to work today, right? And so sometimes I'll do this, sometimes other writers I've talked to do this. They just put in like brackets, main character runs down the street and brackets, find out what model car fits here or what have you, right?
Yeah.
You just figure out a way to make it work. And if that is leaving big chunks in your draft and coming back and fixing it later, fine. I know like Dean Wesley Smith is an author and one of the judges in the contest, Writers of the Future, but also one of the editors of the book. He does something he calls cycling. And so he writes, and then the next day he comes back and he sort of reads over what he just wrote and then keeps going. Makes edits, tweaks it, and keeps going, and then writes and circles back around and keeps doing that. So maybe that works for you, maybe it doesn't, right? I edit more than that. I try not to edit too much, but it doesn't always work.
Yeah.
But you find a way to work, you find a way to make this particular project work for you. And it could be something that works for writing, something that works for other things. I like to call it productive procrastination. If I'm staring at a project, usually what it means is I'm stuck. Something about what I've done is not quite right. And so it's like, okay, I can't work on this right now, or I'm just wasting my time. So then I go do something else. I am procrastinating, but I'm being productive while doing it. And then hopefully my brain figures out what the problem was and I can come back. It's like, you know what, that last scene was ridiculous. I'm going the wrong direction. I don't like what I just did there, or that doesn't fit with my character, or no, like I can see where this is going and it's going to be stupid, right? That is not enough of a challenge. I need to bring him back, and then I need to introduce aliens or ninjas or whatever, we'll spice things up. But you have to figure out where at least I have to figure out where I went wrong. And sometimes I need a little bit of time.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's probably true for most. Sometimes you just got to walk away and, your eyes have to land on something completely different. So it's almost like cleansing your palate.
Absolutely. No, that is a perfect way to say it.
Yeah. The type of stories that you write, books that you write, speculative fiction, fantasy, science fiction, what drew you to that, to make you want to actually spend time writing stories and getting them out there into the world?
That's a great question. And it's funny because it's one that I have a little bit of a hard time answering, only because it started so early for me. So I'm guessing it had to do with the books that my parents read me, or what was around the house, that kind of thing. And then, of course, mixing with my own particular proclivities, right? And so my father read us The Lord of the Rings. Well, starting at The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, he read us the whole series at night for months. I don't even know how long it took. It took a very long time, but it had the sort of impact on me that you want in a kid, right? It's adventure, it's excitement, it's problem solving, it's empathy, it's the sort of what if this sort of thing happened to me, what would I do? What sort of person would I be in this world? And so it has a lot of positive impacts for me in my childhood, that kind of thought. But also, I'm the sort of person who really likes, how to put it? See, I haven't answered this question lately. I'm glad you asked it. But I'm the sort of person that likes solving things, fixing things, or thinking, well, what if that happened, and how could I fix it? Or, what if, it's always a question, right? It's always behind a lot of blockbuster movies or whatever. Oh, aliens showed up. Now what? And that's really the question, like, now what? How would this world work if that happened? That what if allows me to stretch my mind and my imagination in ways that help me just feel happier, right? It's like, oh, well, what if magic were in the world? Just what would that change? Some people are really systematic about how they think about these things. Some writers, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna write up a 50-page list of all the rules in my magic system, and they're that kind of person. And God love them, right? I am not that kind of person. But in my way, I just think about, like, oh, what would that happen? Like, for me, I imagine a character walking out the street, and what would happen? Oh, there's a dragon. Oh, dang. Now what?
When you're creating your characters, or do you create them, or do they literally come to you?
For me, sometimes they always come to me first, I would say. I mean, sometimes I create them, quote unquote, right? Like, I have to say, oh, well, okay, they're a spaceship captain, so now I need to go figure out their background. Like, I might have to work that in, but mostly I'm sitting there thinking, oh, just this problem popped into my head. Then what? And that's always the question. Then what? It's like, oh, well, just this person had a dragon jump out at them, or they're spaceship captains. My story in the book, right, is a spaceship captain is going to her ship and she gets attacked, and that's where my story started in my own mind and in actuality. But yes, I'm thinking, oh, just space captain on the moon, somebody jumps out at her and swings a lead pipe. Now what? Just say, well, okay, well, what happens next? And what would this person do? And why on earth would someone jump out at them, right? And so if you can get your mind into that scene as deeply as possible, for me anyway, it just starts to play. It's like a movie that starts to play.
I was just going to say, it's like a little movie reel that just starts going. What I find very hard, and I'm going to ask you, dialogue. I know what they're saying and what they want to say, but then when I'm writing it out and typing it out or whatever, and then I read it back, I'm going, well, that sounded so much better in my head.
It always does.
Yeah. But dialogue for me, I struggle with that. And I'm not trained in writing or anything, but I've always had a very, very vivid imagination. And I've always spent as much time as possible outside. And that's where my inspiration comes from. Now, I know in your bio, it sounds like that's where some of yours comes from as well.
I mean, for me, it's part of the experience and just how I like to interact with the world. But it's also, like you're saying, you have difficulty with dialogue. I totally get that. But it's also the real world can be a terrific crutch, right? I mean, because you are dealing with things that don't exist in the real world. They're not real, but it doesn't mean that they're not true when you write it, right? And by that, I mean, the dialogue that they have, base it on people you know, at least to begin with, right? I find that a very easy way to get over the hunch. I mean, seriously, just like assign personalities, like, oh, that wood sprite reminds me a lot of whoever.
Right. Right.
Smith down at
Yes.
the corner, right? And just imagine what they might say, or my uncle, or an actor. I mean, it could be anything, but just kind of as a way to get yourself started, to get the characters rolling, that can be. Same thing with the environment. Yeah. So things like for me, having blueberries and streams and all of that sort of thing is a way just to start the setting. And so, I mean, sure, I might imagine a lunar base and a ship and all that sort of thing, right? But really what I'm imagining is, okay, there's like a concrete floor, and I've been in a lot of rooms, very large rooms with concrete floors. What was that like? Right. And so you're bringing in a lot of your real lived experiences.
So
Doesn't matter.
you're using your senses.
Absolutely. That is the key to getting readers involved. Yes, absolutely.
I agree. Yes, because I'm often telling folks, they're like, well, how do you, for that little short story that I read, you brought me to tears. How'd you do that? And I said, I don't know, but even if it's a short or a long story, I use all my senses.
Mhm.
So if I'm like you just mentioned, big room with a concrete floor. Well, was it hot? Did it smell like hot concrete? Was there diesel fumes? Was there gas fumes? Where was I at? What could I see? What color was everything? What did the floor feel like? Was it smooth or was it rough, or did it have ridges in it because something had been drug across it? So all of these things go through my head, but I go through with all my senses doing that. What can
That
you
is
see,
terrific.
smell, touch? I have found that helps me at least, set the scene, and it can bring you in. So when I read a book, and I always say, oh my gosh, I read that book and I absolutely fell into it.
Mhm.
Because you feel like, and I'll be like, they are a brilliant writer. I fell right into their words, and I just love that feeling. And when someone says to me, you made me feel, to me, that is the highest praise as an author or writer, to
Mhm.
hear someone say, oh my gosh, you made me feel, or you made me feel angry. I'm like, good, I made you feel.
Yeah, that there's you really need to bring absolutely what you're saying. You need to bring the reader into this world and have it be, in some sense, as real as the world they're in, right? They need to forget wherever
Yes.
they are and jump through your book and live in your world for a while. And then, like, yes, sight, sound, touch, all of that. But then what, right? You're not just sitting there just touching things. You need to have a thought about that. What does that
Right.
make you think about or feel,
Right.
right? So, oh, I saw a giant, back to my dragon, right? I saw a giant dragon. Well, so what, right? I mean,
Yeah, what was the dragon doing?
what
What
was the
happened?
dragon doing? How do you feel about that dragon? If it's
Right.
just Bob who delivers the mail and he just happens to be a dragon, then fine. You don't feel anything negative. You're just like, oh, hey, Bob.
Yeah,
But if
right.
it's a new thing, you
Yeah.
might have a very different experience.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And now I'm picturing dragons in my head, but I picture pretty ones with big
Mhm.
friendly eyes, just saying, yeah, I'm big. I'm kind of scary to some people and I blow fire, but I still want to be your friend. That's the dragon I see right now.
Yeah, I grew up on the Anne McCaffrey Dragon series myself, so yeah, I like dragons.
Fascinating stuff. I love talking to other authors and finding out how their brains go, how those little cogs are turning. What's next for you? What do you have that's like on that front burner that you're working on right now?
Well, that's an excellent question. And it's funny because I've been thinking about that very thing. And part of the I want to say problem, but it's not that. Part of the challenge, part of the new thing to figure out is making that transition from someone who just dabbles when they feel like it to someone who is being more productive. And so I'm writing things, but I'm not working on a book right now. Well, I'm working on several books, but I don't have anything in particular coming out. And part of my approach to that has to be about figuring out what I want to do, how much time can I put into it, for example, and then where to make the leap next. Now, the nice thing is everybody has seen this story in the Writers of the Future anthology and to say, oh, this is terrific. We would love to see a book about that character in that world. And I'm thinking, well, that's terrific, but I don't know what she's doing yet.
Yeah. Assuming you have a day job.
I do, and that's the problem for most amateurs, obviously, are going to have those challenges. But there was a woman who was at the Writers of the Future workshop. She has 5 kids, and she's writing. I was like, all right, I have no excuses, none. Right? If she can do it, I can do it. And that sort of thing is very encouraging, but also at the same time, you want to make sure that you're investing your time in something that's worthwhile emotionally to you.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yes.
I am working on that story. Just to wrap up that answer, I'm working on the story based on my Writers of the Future world. But I have a long way to go with that. And then I'm working on a lot of other things. I have a lot of other short stories. Back to my productive procrastination concept. Yes. If I can't work on that, if I don't know where my particular space captain is going next, I think, okay, but now I'll work on this other story that I have. And so I'm making my way incrementally, day by day. Hopefully, I'll get them all done.
Well, in one of these days, everything's going to fall into place just exactly how it's supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not worried about it, which is nice, right? I'm to the point in life where I've just not worried that much about it, which helps.
Right. Yes. That helps significantly to reach that point. It's like, I enjoy doing this and I will do it. For me anyway, I enjoy writing books, but I also have clients that I do stuff for, and I have this podcast that I do. And, so there's other things that keep me occupied and very, very busy. So I have learned to not beat myself up too much if I haven't put enough time into writing my own stuff.
That's great advice.
And you have to, for me anyway, you can't put pressure on yourself or you're not going to enjoy it. And for myself, if I'm no longer enjoying it, then I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to force anything. So, if it's your passion to write and you enjoy it, anybody out there listening, whatever it is that you enjoy doing, writing or not, don't let your passion be stomped on because you're putting pressure on yourself. Keep that passion going because you were given that gift for a reason. And don't let anybody else or your own self snuff it out. Keep that passion alive, however it is that you need to, because you need those gifts. They were given to you for a reason. So, and the world needs them. The world needs you. So there you go. That's my 2 cents.
Absolutely. and I think if some people thrive under pressure. And so if they're the sort of people who say, I need to put in 1,000 words a day or I won't be happy, great, do that. But just figure out what works for you and don't worry if it's not the same thing that works for Bob the mail delivering dragon, right?
Right.
Find your own path.
Yes, absolutely. Perfect advice right there. So as we get ready to wrap this up, this has been so fun. I love talking. I love talking to you and learning how your brain's working and your journey and the contest. That's still an amazing accomplishment. So another congratulations on that. But I ask all of my guests before we wrap things up to toss out a nugget of hope to the listeners, something that they can carry with them throughout the rest of their day. So what would your nugget of hope for our listeners be today?
Hmm. That is a great question. It's funny. One of the things that I always think about if I'm having a bad day is that it doesn't matter if there are clouds up there, there's blue sky. There's always blue sky behind the clouds. And that's, tomorrow will be better. And if it isn't the day after, but it's really something that I like to carry with me and think, you know what? It's just, there's always something positive out there. There's always something good. Just look for it and you'll find it.
I'm so glad you said that. I say that all the time. Like sometimes, you go through the day and you're slogging through and you forget to look.
Mm-hmm.
We're surrounded by beauty and positive things every single day, every day. We just forget to look because we got too caught up in the busyness.
Yes.
Don't let busyness blind you, folks. Open up your eyes and open up your heart. There is goodness out there. There's little nuggets of hope laying everywhere. They're laying everywhere. Thank you. Thank you for that nugget of hope. It was lovely. And thank you for being my guest. Now, share with folks where they can find. Do you have a website or anything like that folks can get in touch with you, find out what you're doing, stuff like that?
I do. Thank you. jrjohnson.me, M-E, is my home on the web. And that's where I have, it's my website. I've got a blog. I've actually been blogging every day since the beginning of 2021. And I'm kind of thinking, am I going to quit this sometime? I'm not sure. But it's actually a really great way to explore things that look interesting to me and also just to keep my creativity flowing. So that can be terrific. And my fiction writing is up there too. So if you want to see what I've done or what I'm doing, check me out, jrjohnson.me.
Awesome. Awesome. And that'll be in the show notes, folks. This is also on YouTube, so it'll be in the description. But thank you. Thank you so much for being my guest today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, thank you. I just love all the hope that you're bringing into the world and finding ways to focus on the good. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. That's lovely. Thank you. And all of you out there listening, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget, each Wednesday, a new episode is uploaded of Let Fear Bounce, tossing out those nuggets of hope. So this is Kim Langling, your host. Everybody be well, stay well, and be blessed. Thanks so much for joining me on Let Fear Bounce this week. New episodes upload each Wednesday, folks, so be sure that you subscribe on one of your favorite platforms that you listen on. Also, we're on YouTube, so hop on over to YouTube, folks, and subscribe there. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you. You are amazing. Have a beautiful day. Everybody be well, stay well, and be blessed.